I've got a story I would like to tell as well, as part of this storytelling event here.
Shocked.
Yes, of course, it's a good one, Tom. Thank you very much for your support in this endeavor. I'm glad that you're at least there to keep everyone well entertained while I just have to sit here and kind of pay attention to what you're doing or not doing, as the case may be. Anyway, I do have a story I'd like to tell. The name of this story is called Event Horizon, and I think you'll like it.
You sure you want to tell that one?
But what?
I just don't know if it's a little sensitive.
That's why we're telling these stories. That's the purpose of a storytelling event, Thomas, is that we tell stories that are both entertaining and real. In this storytelling event, The Day the Earth Stood Still, we're doing it because it's not just sci-fi, it's sometimes those moments in time that do capture us. So yeah, sometimes they can be a little sensitive, but that's why we're doing these things. And that's why I'm telling these stories, and this one, because I get to tell a little bit of the truth while you sit there and lie to people's faces.
Oh, I lie to people's faces. Thank you so much.
It's fair assessment. Sorry. I'm sorry. Didn't mean
Kiss
to.
my ass? No. No, that's fine.
Interrupt you there, but yeah, I do think it's a fair assessment. See, you lie to people, and I tell the truth. See, I might be the alternate Tom, the negative Tom over here, but that doesn't
Negative's a good expression, yeah.
to come up with something that's a bit of a false story here. Don't make me spell my drink.
Okay, good. Why don't you want to tell your story, or what are you going to do?
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that. You just sit down there like a good boy. You did that very well, and you can now be bored. Read a book. That's what I've been doing. So, let me tell my story.
Okay, go ahead.
Again, the name of this story is Event Horizon. And it's an interesting story. So, follow my notes just in case. Yeah, this is what happens when you have a bad choreographer and a good storyteller working together. It's an interesting story. Event Horizon. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to take you on a trip to Mars. Yes, Mars. Not the planet Mars, but Mars Bluff, South Carolina, in the United States of America. The year was 1958. The date was March 11th, 1958. And as an interesting story took place, at this point, a United States Air Force bomber accidentally dropped an atomic bomb on a family's home in Mars Bluff, South Carolina. Although there were injuries, this was not the death toll that it could possibly have been. Fortunately, although the bomb was laden with nuclear and atomic material, the detonator was not active. So there was a boom, but not a big boom like it could have been. The fissionable material didn't go off, but needless to say, there were injuries. It was the early 2000s when I was hiking on the Appalachian Trail, and I met an older man, probably in his late 50s, low to early 60s. And we just got to chatting as we were walking and talking, and it just seemed like he had something he wanted to tell. So he decided to share the story with me. And it was the story of his family in Mars Bluff, and exactly what happened to him. His name was Walter Gregg Jr., and his father, Walter Gregg Sr., his mother, his brothers, all lived in Mars Bluff, South Carolina. And this is his story as he told it to me. It was a cool early spring evening, and the family had been working on the farm doing their normal activities, their Nothing seemed out of the usual, out of the normal. But they did have 2 small calves that had run off, and they hadn't been able to locate them. But again, that was nothing too unusual. They did their chores. Their mother was in the house, cooking, preparing food, preparing dinner for the family. And then the whole family came inside. After chores were done, darkness started to fall. They were sitting and eating and just relaxing, enjoying themselves. Everything was fine. Everyone was good. Dinner was going along. They ate. And as they were sitting there and they were talking, suddenly the entire house was filled with white and red light that just blew through the windows and underneath the door frame and filled and enveloped the entire home with white and red light. They lost all power in the house, and that just made the light seem even brighter. But at the same time, due to the power loss, they were also able to see within the next 2 minutes that the light was fading away from the house and moving away from their home and out to one of the cleared fields that they had. And as it was told to me, Pa grabbed his Remington, which he normally just used for hunting, and he went out to the door and he cautioned us all to stay inside while he went out and checked out what was happening, to make sure the family would be safe and to try and figure out what had come to Mars Bluff. But me being nearly 14 years old at that time and practically a man, the second man in the house, there's no way I was going to let my pa just run off out there by himself. So I let him get out the door about a minute and I followed right behind. And although Dad grabbed me and he scolded me, I think in the end he was really happy I went and joined him anyway. We went over and we were walking towards the lights. The lights had settled down out in the middle of one of our partially cleared fields. We could see a silver object out there, set right in the middle on a small hill. It had blue, it had red and white lights all on the underneath, on the underbelly of it, and the whole body was silver. And although we couldn't hear anything in the house, the closer we started walking towards it, we could hear a low hum take place. But as closer we approached, the hum got a little bit louder, and then the lights started changing color, and then amidst the red and the white, there suddenly came a blue light shining out from underneath. Pa shoved me down to the ground and held me there. He wound up covering my body with his own. He was trying to protect me from what he didn't know, and from what I couldn't tell either. But all I could see from the shining around us were these red, white, and blue lights, which I was thinking at that age, that's kind of patriotic. You know, maybe it's not a ship from Mars, maybe it's an American ship, but it was scary, and we didn't know quite what to do. Well, Pa held me down, and then he said, "You stay here." And I felt him get up off me, and he stood up to get a better look. He was a little bit taller than me, so he could see over some of the bushes that were there, and some of the weed that we had growing. But Pa just kind of froze, staring at the lights. And then he started walking. Didn't say another word, started walking towards the lights, started walking towards the ship. That's what it was. I know it had to be a ship from Mars, it had to be a spaceship. Well, I mean, we were in Mars. It only made sense that we'd have a ship from Mars come there, right? And Pa just kept walking. I ran up, tried to grab him, but I made sure I kept my back to the lights because whatever was going on there, it wasn't good, and it had its attention too well. But as I looked back towards us, I could see Mom and my brothers were leaving the house, and they were walking in the direction could stop her from moving any further forward. She wasn't paying any attention to me. Her eyes were all glazed over. Same thing with my brothers. They couldn't seem to see anything, and they just kept walking forward. I turned back towards Palm, and Palm was still much further ahead of us. He was walking slow too, but he just kept heading towards the lights. And he had a little bit of a smile on his face, like he knew something I didn't. And then I stared at the lights. And I knew I needed to be inside that ship. I knew I needed to go. I knew that once I went inside that ship, every question I ever had in my head, in my life, was going to be answered for me. The lights told me that. The hum told me that. And slowly I could feel my legs start to move on their own. And I started to walk towards the ship. That's when the bomb hit. And the bomb hit straight on that silver spaceship with its flashing red, white, and blue lights. We got floored. We fell back. There was a boom that just knocked us all off our feet. Sand, dirt, and plants and everything just scattered all over us. Not 2 seconds after that, a second bomb hit. And that one blew our house to hell. We got debris rained all over us. There was wood and planks and dirt and everything else just smashed all over us. I got up and I crawled closest to Mom because she was closest to me. And I looked down and she had a big gash on her leg, but didn't seem to be bleeding too bad. The rest of her was just covered in dirty, just a little messed up, but she seemed okay otherwise. And I checked out my brothers, and my brothers all seemed good too. Except all their eyes were just glazed over. They just still couldn't see anything. They didn't react. But now I was worried about Pa. Pa was much closer to the big blast that went off. I went over, I dragged myself over to Pa. I wasn't hurt too bad, just a little banged up, so I was okay. But Pa, I was really worried so fierce for him. When I got there, he seemed a little hurt too, but he was breathing. That was the important thing. But his eyes were still glazed the same as everyone else's. So I held him there, and I put my hands on the cuts that I could see on his neck and the scratches on his face and tried to clean his face off. And I sat there. Not a few minutes later, although it felt like hours at the time, I could hear the military truck show up. And before you know it, there were Army soldiers running all around us. They ignored me and my family. They ran straight up to that silver ship. They paid no attention to us. They had something in mind they had to go do. And the ship was just laying there now. Didn't seem too broken up, despite the bomb. But there were no lights, and there was no hum now. Not at all. So these guys are running back and forth, and they're trying to do all their stuff, and I didn't know what to do, so I just stayed sitting next to Pop. After a while, some of them came up, and I guess those had to be the medics. They came up and they started taking care of Mom and my brothers. And then they started walking over towards me and Pop. And one of them looks at me, and his eyes get all big, and he's wearing his old little coverall uniform. And he says, Major, this one's awake. Now, some fella comes over, and I can only assume he was the major. And he comes over, and he waves off the Army guy, and he looks down at me. I remember look into your soul. Just look straight through you. He looked at me and said, "Are you awake, son?" So I looked back at him, and I could tell this man is just looking right into me. And I shook my head and said, "No, sir. I am sound asleep, I think. I think I am dreaming." He looked at me and he smiled. He says, "Good man. That's the right answer." And then he got real up close to me. Put his arm on my shoulder and he looked right in my eyes. And again, I could feel those eyes just laying me bare. Those bright blue eyes looking into me. He said, "Son, a terrible accident took place here tonight. But you and your family are all right, and that's all that matters. You've had a very, very bad dream. And all of this will be better in the morning. Now why don't you go to sleep?" And I looked back in those blue eyes of his and I said, "Yes, sir, I think I will." And with that, I went to sleep. Out. And I had a dreamless sleep. When I did finally wake up, I was in the hospital. I'm in the hospital laying there. Ma's over next to me. Her legs all bandaged up. But she looked happy and she looked okay. And Lord, she was just so excited and so disturbed. She said, "You just never believe what's happened, Walter. Your dad is fine. Don't worry, he's okay." She said, "An Air Force accidentally dropped a bomb on our house. Could you believe that?" She said, "We are so lucky that we weren't all killed when that bomb hit our house." She said, "They're going to pay for everything though. They're going to take care of us. All our medical's going to be covered. They're going to take care of the house and help us rebuild it. And they're going to fix some things. But it's going to take a little while because they got to do some cleanup." I don't think I've ever heard my mom speak like that before, but I said, "Okay. Whatever you say, Mom." When I talked with Pa and my brothers, I was just very, very casual, asking how they were feeling. And they all repeated the same story. "Wow, aren't we lucky? When that bomb hit our house, we were just so lucky to live." Not one of them remember seeing the silver ship. Not one of them remember seeing those red, white, and blue lights. Not one of them remembers much of it after. They remember being rescued by the military from out of the house. That's what they remember. I figured it was best not to enlighten them. I figured it was best to keep the secret. And I figured that Major was still somewhere out there. I needed to keep quiet too. But time goes on. The official report from the U.S. military was that, again, B-47 bomber accidentally dropped an inert atomic bomb on a small home in Mars Bluff, South Carolina. And although there was no fissionable material released, there was still some time required, and the entire area needed to be quarantined so that everything could be properly disposed of and removed. By the time we got back to our family household, the house was gone, completely razed, level, nothing. Everything gone, every stick, every timber. They said they'd pay for it, and eventually they did, and we were able to rebuild. But our whole field had been stripped down, about 3 feet deep. Gone. All that ground, gone. They said they needed to make sure it was clear that there was few days after this, we were back visiting the homestead, the site. Those two damn calves came back again, wandering out, looking around, going, "Hey, what happened here? We went out for a little bit, but we're back now. What's up?" Like nothing else ever happened. I've kept my quiet this whole time. But now Pa's dead. My brothers are still around, most of them. Don't talk to all of them, but Ma's gone, Pa's gone. Doesn't hurt to tell this story anymore. So of course I asked him, "Why me? Why would you tell this story to me? I think it's fascinating, I think it's interesting. But why would you tell me this story?" And he had an interesting take on it. He told me, Walter Gregg Jr. told me that, "Well, you're one of them storytellers, from what you tell me. No one's ever going to believe you anyway." He said, "Besides," he says, "it's a strange enough story, as a true-to-life story gets, that an atomic bomb was dropped on Mars Bluff, South Carolina, in the United States, and most people don't even know about that. What if I was to add all that other strange stuff into it? That would be even more unbelievable, wouldn't it? Perfect for a story. No one ever believed it." Logic made sense to me. I was still shocked and amazed that he was willing to share this. But I asked him, I said, "Why me? Why would you tell this to me of all people?" And he kind of smiled and he looked at me. And he said, "I want to share something else with you too. It's not just a chance meeting between us." He said, "When that major came up to me and looked me in the eye with those blue eyes that could just stare into your soul, I gotta tell you something now. Those blue eyes were the same color of the blue light that came out from that ship. They were the same eyes, the same blue, and the same color eyes that you have on you." And he reached out, and he patted me on the shoulder, and he walked away, leaving me to finish my hike on the trail by himself. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Thomas James Approbato Jr. My father was Thomas James Approbato Sr., United States Air Force. Major Thomas James Approbato Sr. And my story's done. Thank you.
Thomas, I gotta tell you, that was pretty good. Good story. Reminds me of something else.
Well on that. I do appreciate your support too.
Good. That reminds me of